Gameranx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and some of our thoughts on the latest games releasing. As usual, it's your guy, Jake Baldito, and today we're talking about Drawn to Death. This is a PS4 shooter often misconceived as like a free-to-play game, but it's actually not. Well, sort of, at least. It's $20, but it's free right now if you have PlayStation Plus. A lot of folks have asked me about this one, so I figured we'd take a quick look. I've also been keeping an eye on this game just because the creator is the famed design team leader David Jaffe, behind stuff like the original God of War and Twisted Metal. And what we got here is a quirky, character-based shooter with a unique but maybe a little abrasive personality that I think will lend itself more towards some casual play sessions. Drawn to Death is a third-person, arena-based shooter based around 6 launch characters and their special abilities. That's the most important thing here. People keep coining it as a third-person Overwatch Lite, and I get that comparison, but characters and roles aren't as vital as something as Overwatch. It really just boils down to which special moves for each character you like. No one really has to play their role, so to speak, but there are some nice little counterattacks from one special ability to another that does make it feel a bit more creative than you'd expect. And creative is literally the name of the game here. Drawn to Death is centered around the concept of being based in this high school teenager's notebook. You know, everything here is like a bunch of doodles, from in-game gameplay to every single menu. That goes for the humor too, whether you like it or not. It's crude, dumb teenager humor. There's lots of jerk-off and poop jokes, and it's hit or miss funny, if maybe just trying a little bit too hard. But it's nothing really to push you one way or another. If anything, as cringeworthy as it can be sometimes, it's still at least refreshing, and it fits the visual style well. Even if the writing seems kind of like overly edgy or something to you, at least the game looks cool. Everything looks hand-drawn and weird and crazy, and the character designs are actually pretty interesting and nice. I like them a lot. They're all pretty unique, and thankfully the models lend themselves to tons of different, completely unique-looking skins that you can get for each character, which does kind of seem like a nice way of upping the visual variety. And gameplay-wise, it's a bit more old school, I guess, than I expected. It's twitchy, and I definitely recommend turning up the sensitivity once you start. While I don't think it feels perfect in terms of shooting and movement, you know, the jump can be awkwardly floaty, but there's no awkward dead zones or input latency, which is something I expected from a smaller console shooter. But otherwise, it plays just fine, I guess. The best part of Drawn to Death's gameplay is the reliance on knowing the ins and outs of a map and where the good power-ups and weapons are, and that mastery and that way to win just kind of feels kind of old school in a good way. I was actually surprised, and this is what I definitely enjoyed most after playing the game for quite a while. It's a pretty aggressive shooter. You play aggressively, you use your abilities as much as possible, and play the map well. And when things get hairy and intense, you sort of worry less about the imperfect feeling controls. Look, I'm not making excuses or anything, it's just how I felt. Modes are pretty basic here, and most matches fall back on team deathmatch. As of right now, you can pop into matchmaking or ranked matchmaking, but you don't really have a choice over what mode you play, and that's kind of disappointing. With 6 characters, all of which, like I said, are kind of cool, it can still feel a bit content light with everything. And I think that's probably the biggest issue with the game. Look, I know it's a cheaper game, so with that, of course, the offering is expected to be a bit lighter, but it still just feels like it's missing something. It just doesn't totally feel like the most satisfying package. But progression feels decent enough. Through winning matches, you unlock these keys, which allow you to unlock new loadout weapons and weapons that you can pick up through spawns on the map. This works because, like I said, the skins are good, but the weapons are really good. Lots of cool and uniquely designed and dumb, weird weapons. You shoot video game cartridges from a console. There's a coffin launcher that launches explosive bodies, to name a few. Sadly enough, though, I still found myself falling back on more traditional guns, but the weird ones do have their uses in some spaces, and the special abilities do really shine for each character, especially more mobility-based ones. It definitely seems like in this game, the characters that have the most mobility options pretty much do the best. To me, it might seem like a little bit of a balancing thing. I'm no expert, but thankfully those are the characters I ended up liking to play as. But obviously, I think it's gonna be up to you which character type you kind of enjoy. The most fun is definitely experimenting with the abilities and the weapon types to see which suit you best. There's also good old microtransactions and loot boxes. The game does try to make a joke out of it, but it almost calls more attention to it. Loot boxes work similar to Overwatch and cost similar, but every 150 kills gets you a free mystery box, so that's a thing. You can buy in or even buy a weapon bulk drop. Since the game is technically not free, it's definitely something worth knowing, just saying. Drawn to Death isn't perfect at all. It's honestly not for most folks, but if you can get it cheap and you want some quick deathmatch action with a unique look, give it a shot. I think it's worth at least a try if you're down for a fairly light console shooter experience. I didn't go in with very high expectations, but I did have some fun in matches. That's about it. It's as cut and dry as that. That's how Before You Buy works, though. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion thrown in there, but now I definitely want to hear yours. If you're someone who has a PlayStation and maybe got your hands on this, Let's talk about how you feel. Are you digging the gameplay more than me, or maybe does the visual style annoy you? And what's your favorite character? Because I think they're all pretty unique and kind of funny. If you are into the game, I definitely want to hear what your favorite loadout is and what character you use. I don't know how long the community is gonna last with this game. Maybe you have some thoughts, let me know in the comments. I'll be answering your questions as much as I possibly can, and I'll also be on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino as well. But you guys know the deal. Clicking the like button helps us out a ton. We do more and more before you buys because of that. But if you're new, subscribing is a good idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.